What's up, everyone? It's Wacka. Welcome you to another discussion video for Draft League. I haven't made one in quite a while, well, other than like all the Mega Evolution stuff. But I looked at my playlist the other day and I noticed that I think out of the 10 videos I have there, that they're all about Megas and like the ZA Megas in general. But I think it's been about a year since I made my video about Pokemon that have kind of fallen off in the draft format, and I think to brighten things up a little bit, let's bring some positivity here. Let's look at some easy Pokemon to use in the Generation 9 draft NetDex format. Um, it's just kind of a video that I thought about um, after I've noticed I've been getting a little bit more attention from like newer players, and in order to help newer players, I've concocted a list of 10 Pokemon that I think new players should use and kind of like how to use them. So it's kind of like a how to use series, but a little bit more like rapid fire here. So no, Diancie will not be in this video. Um, I might make a Diancie video at some point, probably before Gen 9 ends, but I feel like I kind of missed the ball with Diancie. Like it's been a while, and I should probably do that soon. So, getting things started, the first Pokemon I have on my list is Azumarill. So I think Azumarill is still very solid in both NatDex and Paldea decks. Um, I honestly can't really think of what it lost in Paldea, to be honest, other than like Toxic, which isn't like a very super common move that you'd run on Azu, but it's a very easy mon to use because it has a very good typing with Water Fairy. Both offensive and defensively, it's such a great typing, honestly. It has a very good mix of bulk with 100 HP and 80 in both its defenses, which might seem a little bit like outshadowed at this point, but considering its typing being so solid, like I actually think it's still very good. And you can definitely run like physically defensive on it and still hit hard. You can run Assault Vest on it and still hit hard. Basically, huge power gives it a base attack stat of 149 if you're adamant max attack. I have looked at the damage calc, like you hit the exact number. If a Pokemon had base 149 in attack, adamant max attack would be what Azumarill also hits, which is its base 50 attack stat plus well, it'd be its base 50 attack stat times 2. So yeah, that's 149 if you are adamant max attack, which in a lot of instances there's not really a reason to not run adamant max attack, so you have that there. It has very easy moves to run. You don't really have to think a lot about its move pool other than, I guess, the fact that Player can miss, but I think its water coverage is just so good with the Liquidation and Aqua Jet. And in most instances, I think water is a little bit more spammable than fairy, anyways. At least from what I've noticed, like I've tended to find that water moves are just very easy to click. Um, and Liquidation has a good secondary effect in dropping defense 20% of the time. And a lot of times, the Liquidation into Aqua Jet just kills a lot of offensive Pokemon. Excuse me, offensive Pokemon that would be switching in defensively to check it. Like, um, I think earlier this week I used a Azumarill and like a Thundurus swapped in on it, and Liquidation like kind of demolished it. And then Aqua Jet was able to pick it off. Knockoff is a helpful tool as well, and it gets other cool tools such as Ice Spinner or Ice Punch, and it gets some fighting moves. I think it might get Brick Break, but it has some decent fighting type coverage. Um, and if you find a matchup where Azu doesn't really do much offensively, but you do need it defensively, it has two very good defensive abilities in Thick Fat and Sap Sipper. Thick Fat, I can think of the best case use of it being against probably Kyurem and Iron Bundle. And then Sap Sipper is very good against big grass types like Rillaboom or Tapu Bulu. I've run Sap Sipper against Tapu Bulu. I've also run Sap Sipper against Mega Gyarados, which kind of bit me in the ass because Mega Gyarados does have Mold Breaker, but there's this item called Ability Shield that if you're not a dumbass like me, you can run Ability Shield and not care about Mega Gyarados at all. So that's very cool that you can do that. So you have two very good solid defensive abilities, um, with very good bulk. And you could also run stuff like Whirlpool plus Perish Song, and it's definitely bulky enough to run those two moves with like Protect, and like a coverage move like Knockoff or Aqua Jet in case you just wanted to like pick off something else. Um, but you typically run like the Whirlpool Perish Song set on like a Thick Fat or like a Sap Sipper set just to be easier defensively. But like turning a grass weakness into a grass immunity plus a benefit to your attack set is just so good. I've seen Azumarill do damage with Sap Sipper, on the physical side, like base 50 attack, even though it's kind of low, like a +1 is still it's a bit stronger than people would expect it to be, I suppose. That's enough about Azumarill. Next up, I'm going to talk about Mr. Pheasantipity. If you have been in SDS for a while, or just kind of, if you know me, you guys know that I love Pheasantipity. As soon as I saw its design, I was like, this is like the Pokemon of all time that I have to use it. It's super. I don't know what it is about it. Like, I don't know if it's like, if it's pretty or if it's like just kind of cool looking. I like the colors. Maybe not the biggest fan of the orange, but I really do like the pink. As you can tell with like the background, I like the pink, even though the pink is not really part of its design because it's also on Okidogi and Munkidori. But I think the pink fits a lot better with Pheasantipity, and you'd expect pink to be a part of its design. Um, Other than that, it's a Poison Fairy typing with 88 HP, 82 defense, and 125 special defense, which is very solid, very solid. It beats the two best mons of the format, being Iron Valiant and Dragapult. It outspeeds Great Tusk as well, so like basically the top three mons in the format. It walls both of Meowscarada's dual stabs. Not that it really matters because Meow is a protein mon, but uh, having a 4 times resist to U-turn, resisting Flower Trick and Knockoff is very solid. It does have to watch out for like Triple Axle, but you can kind of see that like Fez really does match up very well against a lot of top tiers. Um, and it's 99 speed, while it's kind of faster than people would think it would want to be for a mon with its bulk. It's actually not a bad thing for it because it's a little bit slower than a lot of threatening mons that it is checking. So like Iron Valiant Pult, if it's being forced to switch those guys out, it basically is getting a slow pivot on those. But then you're also outspeeding a lot of ground types like Tusk, and Lando, in case you're threatened by them or like you can't Oko them, because sometimes they don't die to Moonblast, or like Landorus might not die to like a Technician Icy Wind, for example. And that is one of the bad things about Fez, is it's not very strong, but you do outspeed them and you can pivot for a little bit of chip and the ability to toxic chain them, which does get like it is toxic. It's not poison touch. It's toxic, which could be worse or better. But in longer games where Fez is like clicking Roost and kind of pivoting around things, toxic is still pretty solid. Um, and it pairs very well with offensive ground types, since those ground types love to beat up those steals and poisons that Fez um, pretty much baits in, because why, like, either you're going to poison something with a pivot move, or you're going to bait in something for your ground type. So it's just very good at doing that. Technician is a decent ability if you're using Terra. I've seen like Terra Dark beat up do things. It also gets like Tail Slap. It gets Icy Wind. It's not a very good mon if you're trying to use it with setup though. Like, I think it's only good if you're using it as a pivot. But there are matchups where Calm Mind is like decent, or even like a nasty plot set is kind of decent, you could get away with it. And I think with Terra, you have a lot more opportunities to do that. But without Terra, probably not. Still a good mon regardless, and I would recommend using it. Next up, we have Okidogi. So I kind of wasn't planning on having these guys together, but I feel like Okidogi is a little bit under the radar. Um, Not to make a joke about under the radar, but hopefully that guy's doing good. By the way, he's one of my inspirations for like making these videos, and I kind of miss these kind of videos from him. So now I'm doing them. So go check out Under the Radar if you haven't. Most of his content is from like Gen 7, so it might not be like super helpful, but if you're doing like an old draft or like an Usum Oras draft, like he might actually be pretty helpful there. But yeah, next up we have Okidoki. It's a good poison fighting type, which is a pretty good offensive typing. We've seen it on like Sneasler and Toxicroak, which even though Toxicroak is not a good mon, like it is kind of obnoxious to switch in on. It has two really good abilities in both Guard Dog and why did I say Guard Dog and Bulk Up? I meant to say Guard Dog and I did say that. Guard Dog and Toxic Chain. Bulk Up actually beats Lander's Therian. Um, Lando T is a mon that would love to come in on something like Okidogi. Uh, and if you have a Bulk Up, you live in Earthquake. Intimidate gives you a +1 in an attack. So you have +2 attack, and then you Ice Punch it and it dies. Same thing kind of happens to Gliscor, except with Gliscor is just not strong enough to really beat you with Earthquake unless it's an offensive SD Gliscor, which I still think kind of loses if it's switching in on Okidogi. If not, it is kind of close, and I think trading like Lando and Gliscor for a Dogi is pretty solid, especially when those are mons that, in theory, should be beating Dogi. But also, like, Toxic Chain is pretty good, kind of similar to like Pheasantipity. Bulky poisons are threatened by like high horsepower, and I think Psychic Fangs as well, but I didn't put Psychic Fangs on that list of coverage moves. Knockoff, Ice Punch, Fire Punch is good for like Scissor. Knockoff, good for items. High horsepower is good for mons that are just weak to ground, like bulky poisons that would be walling Dogi otherwise. So it has a lot of move options, and it can do a lot. Very good with Assault Vest, and it's immune to toxic poison, or toxic or poison, which are things that would be chipping it down as like a physical attacker. Other than that, it's just a very bulky mon that is very hard to kill. I think the only thing that Dogi wishes it had is U-turn, and like maybe base 85 speed and not base 80, but I can't really be mad about it. It's still fast enough to do things, and you could run Scarf on it. But other than that, it's kind of just a bulky mon, and I've seen every time it does get drafted, it performs very, very well. Which is sad because I actually really don't see it get picked up that often. So hopefully people do pick it up after this. Next up, we have Munkidori. Um, it's very good at missing its Focus Blast versus Steel types and getting one-shot everything because it's a mediocre offensive Psychic type, just like a lot of other mediocre offensive Psychic types like Alakazam and like Reuniclus. So it's very good at it. It's also very phallic looking, and it's a really funny design. Its stats are kind of a joke because I think Pheasantipity with Munkidori stats actually would have been a good Pokemon. But unfortunately, they both had to be like not super great. Now, I did put Pheasantipity on here, but Munkidori is just a joke slide. I think if Pheasantipity actually had Munkidori's stats, Fez would be like a top tier mon. But unfortunately, Munkidori had to take the good stats and not do anything because of it. And instead, Pheasantipity is just a defensive pivot that still beats all of the fucking top tiers. So it doesn't even fucking matter that Fez is still the best one of the three. Well, I think it might be actually close between Dogi and Fez being the best one. But yeah, I did put Munkidori here as a joke. So moving on from Munkidori, we got Gallade. Glade's very solid. I'm going to say that about all these mons, that they're all very solid. Sharpness really put it over the top offensively. having both Sacred Sword and Psycho Cut having no drawbacks and actually having quite a few benefits, such as Sacred Sword being a move that can pierce defense. And I think Psycho Cut has a high crit rate. Um, Other than that, it has other coverage moves such as Leaf Blade and Night Slash, which Leaf Blade and Leaf Blade is like 145 base power, like a yeah, I think it's 145 base power with sharpness, and then Night Slash is like 105, so it's like basically stab. If you're using Glade in the sun, like you could use Solar Blade as well, like 180 base power Solar Blades, which is kind of funny. But I wouldn't recommend using Glade on like a sun team because there's other things that you'd rather have, like a Slitherwing as your fighting type. But you know, um, Glade's very fat with Assault Vest. I've literally calced this, and this calc has stayed in my head for like the last 2 years. Darkrai Dark Pulse does 17% to split F Assault Vest Glade, and Glade doesn't even need attack investment to OHKO Darkrai back with Sacred Sword, which isn't surprising, but it does come to show like just how strong sharpness really is. Because without sharpness, like most most mons that don't invest in attack and invest fully in defense can't really kill things with a stab move, even if that stab move is like super effective. Um, think about like a non-invested Garchomp Earthquake to like some random like I don't know like an Entei. Like you're not killing Entei with Earthquake unless you're like invested. You might even need like an item to KO fucking Entei, but Glade just kind of kills things. Entei wasn't a very good example because Entei is kind of fat, but in Darkrai is not. But I think like you kind of understand what I mean. I think just how strong Glade really is. And it has phenomenal coverage as well. It has one of the best move pools in the entire game. I think it has like the fourth most amount of moves of any Pokemon. Only beaten out by like Clef Mew and maybe Gardevoir. I think Glade might have more than Gardevoir, to be honest, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. It's also a phenomenal Terra Captain. I have used it with Terra before, but unfortunately I had to drop it, and I think I used like Terra Arachnid. But Glade will be on my radar, I think, at least one more time before Gen 9 is over and before whatever Gen 10 mechanic takes over. Next up, we have Bellibolt. I've seen Bellibolt in the lower echelon of the tier system since 2022, and I am starting to kind of question why it's there because, for one, it's a pure electric type with only one weakness, but it also has superb bulk with 109 HP, 91 defense, 103 special defense. Also with 103 special attack, which is decent without investment, and one of its abilities, Electromorphosis, is boosting its electric moves off its 103 special attack. Anytime it gets hit by a move, I believe you can hit it with a physical move, a contact move, special move, doesn't really matter. If it's taking damage by an attacking move, Electromorphosis is activating, which creates a charge, and I believe it doubles the base. I think it doubles the power of the next move. I could be wrong. It's one of those abilities that I don't fully understand, but I believe it's double power. But some people seem to believe it has like a charging effect where like the more you get hit, the stronger it gets, but I don't actually think it's the case. I just think it shows that Electromorphosis activates for some reason, even though it's already activated. Um, if someone would like to like let me know in the comments, that would be very cool. I've used a Bellibolt I think once, but it was one of my most brought Pokemon because I thought Static was very good. Static plus Rocky Helmet was just very good in a lot of games that punish stuff like Mega Lopunny and like a Mega Gallade, and a lot of other like physical contact move attackers. It also is one of the few post Gen 7 Pokemon that gets Toxic, which is very good on electric types, so it can help it beat bulky grounds. Um, Muddy Waters, solid coverage on it. It's not the best move in the world, but it's solid enough for what it does. And it also gets dual screens. But to be honest, I think the lack of options is what makes Bellybolt good. Not having to be overwhelmed by all the things that certain Pokemon can do, like Mew. Uh, it, some people are they're so overwhelmed by Pokemon like Mew that they don't really get everything they could out of that Pokemon. Whereas Bellibolt is very simple. Like, it doesn't have a lot of moves. Um, and people will struggle with it regardless. It's not a mon that you bring to every game, but I think you could argue to bring it to more than half of your games, to be honest. And I could be getting a completely wrong reading because I only used it in the context of Battle City in CLDL. But even after my team was like really really strong, I was still using Bellybolt like pretty consistently, even over a lot of my top tiers. So yeah, I think Bellybolt is just very solid. Next up, we have Basky Legion. I do not see anyone using this Pokemon, and I do not know why. Basky Legion is one of the best offensive Pokemon I've ever used, in the rain especially. Some people are like, well, you can use Swift Swim. Yeah, you can use Swift Swim. You could also like slap a Choice Band on it, run Adaptability, click Wave Crash with Male Form, and there are approximately however many Pokemon have Storm Drain and Water Absorb. Those are the amount of switch-ins there are to Basque Legion. Um, if I had the damage calc open right now, like I would calc for you. Like, just think about all the words I'm about to say here: rain, Terra Water, potentially, adaptability, stab, wave crash. Those are like five things piling on top of each other that all have like pretty big multipliers. Like rain is like a 1.5, stab is another 1.5, wave crash is just 120 base power, adaptability is, well, it's an extra boost on top of stab. So you're basically doubling the base power in the stab. I think it's basic with rain and adaptability. It's basically like 3 times stronger than it would be normally. So that's very strong coming off like 112. I will say its attacking stat itself isn't the most phenomenal thing ever, but it really is though. Like a lot of things can just add on top of each other, and it's very hard to switch in on Besky Legion. Oftentimes you just have to let things die. It's a very good wall breaker in general. You don't even have to draft it on a rain team. I think it's a good Assault Vest Mon with a pivoting move, which, by the way, when I used Basque Legion, I didn't have Flip Turn on it. Like, now that it has Flip Turn, it's just a lot better. Aqua Jet is pretty good as well. Uh, yeah, that's all I have to say. And even in the rain, Swift Swim plus Wave Crash is still like strong enough to beat things. If you want to use female form, like Adaptability Surf is pretty good. It also has a very high HP stat, and I didn't put it on here, but it's very bulky. You can run Agility plus Weakness policy on it, and I have done that before. And I think my first Gen 9 draft, so like the first time I was actually able to use Basque Legion, it performed phenomenally. And I only used Basque Legion my last 2 weeks of that draft. I dropped Spectrier for Basque Legion. I don't even think I care to use the rest of my points, because I hated Spectrier so much that I picked up Basque Legion, and Basque Legion did the damn thing, and I almost made it to playoffs because of Basque Legion alone. Like, it almost saved my entire draft. It just came like 7 weeks too late, you know. But yeah, I would highly recommend use Basque Legion, even if you're not using it on Rain. Another Rainmon I had on this list is Overquill. This mon is superb in the rain, as because poison helps to break through a lot of bulky grasses that handle other rain options like Barraskewda. Life Orb plus Swords Dance and Swift Swim. Basically, this mon outspeeds everything that isn't an opposing Swift Swimmer or like. No, you outspeed like speed boost Val. I think a speed boosting bundle would outspeed you, but that's not a lot of Pokemon. But it's beating a lot of Scarfs basically with +2 in the Swift Swim. Terra, you can tear this to water, so you can get stab on water, but also keep stab on like Gunk Shot and Crunch. Life Orb plus Swords Dance is just a very huge multiplier. It also gets like Scale Shot if you want to use that, but there's no reason to use Scale Shot if you're using it in the rain. You typically only run Gunk Shot because Crunch and Liquidation are good enough coverage where like Gunk Shot is basically like the I'm going to delete you now move. I don't think there was a time I really ever ran Poison Jab on Overquill, but you could do it. You could also run Barbarage, but I think Barbarage is more of an option if you're running Overquill outside of the rain and you're running like Intimidate, which is still a very good option on Overquill. Intimidate plus Barbarage is very strong to chip things and also threaten like higher damage and kills if Barbarage actually gets that poison off. You get spikes and T-spikes, which is very nice. I think the one thing Overquill wishes it had is Flip Turn. I know that regular Quillfish has Flip Turn, and that's probably why Overquill didn't, because they have to give regular Quillfish a reason to do something. I almost put regular Quillfish on this list, by the way, but I think because I put Overquill on here, that I was gonna leave regular Quillfish off, and I think a lot of people kind of know what regular Quillfish does anyways. But it's fine. At number 8, we have Leafeon. I had to put Leafeon on this list. I wanted to get this list up to 10 Pokemon, and I kind of figured putting Leafeon here made sense for me. I've used it a couple times recently as a pure grass type, and I kind of like that it's not like it's a pure grass other than like poison grass, steel grass, because they don't resist ground. You draft a grass type usually to resist ground unless like that grass poison is like something that you need, is like a fairy resist, or it's like a Venusaur in the sun or like a Mega Venusaur or Thick Fat. But like a pure grass is really good for resisting ground. It's very physically tanky despite its low HP pool, but it also has synthesis for healing. Fun fact though, well, won't be a fun fact pretty soon, but it is currently the only Pokemon in the Eevee line that gets knockoff, because for some reason Umbreon did not get knockoff. But in ZA Umbreon got knockoff, but for now Leafeon is the only knockoff user. It also has very heat sets that beat like steel types like Scissor, using Sunny Day and Weather Ball. I've used Leafeon in the sun before with like Life Orb, and I'm pretty sure like it had no switch-ins. There was nothing in the world that could switch into Leafeon like at all, which is kind of insane. But also for a defensive grass type, it's pretty fast, and you can run it to outspeed like slower ground types, or I don't know, like anything you need it to outspeed. Because I think the pool of like faster walls is increasing, especially when you're adding like Pecharunt to the mix. There's other faster walls too, but not every wall is like 0 speed. Like the 95 base speed is actually pretty solid on Leafeon for what it is, and it also has a very high attack stat with decent physical moves in both Leaf Blade knockoff. Double Edge, to be honest, is pretty good on it. I think Leafeon is the best budget grass type available, like under 4 points, and I think usually Leafeon's around like 2 points, which I think is very underpriced, to be honest. I would rather have Leafeon over like every other 2-point grass. I'd probably rather have this over Gourgeist unless I really need that ghost type, which is a point in like Gourgeist's favor, but I think Leafeon kind of offers more than a lot of low tier grasses. Even stuff like Tangela, like it offers a lot more than Tangela. Um, I would much rather use Levion for sure. At number 9, I have Kaparaja. I'm currently using this in low tier, and I'm kind of realizing it's a bit of an awkward mon to use, but in the weeks where I'm calcing like its defensive sets, it is very, very fat and very hard to kill. 122 HP is very good on it, and 69 in both its defensive stats aren't awful because investment in them makes it a lot tankier. It's kind of like Aloe, where Aloe can be a very tanky mon with Assault Vest, and Aloe only has like base 45 special defense, whereas Kaparaja basically has like 70, and his HP isn't that much lower. Now Kaparaja doesn't have like Wish Protect, but um, it is very bulky. With AV, or you can run a Resist Berry on it. It's very good. But the difference between Kaparaja and Aloe is Kaparaja has an attack stat with very strong moves and very strong abilities offensively. Heavy Metal makes Heavy Slam and Heat Crash 120 base power on like basically everything. Um, I will say for low tier it's a little bit different because you're not running into like the super heavy mons in low tier. Like you're not running into Celesteela or like Gouging Fire. You're not really gonna want to stay in either of those anyways because those mons are they're meant to wall you, and Kaparaja is like a 4-point Pokemon at this point. This thing used to be like 8 points, and although I can kind of see why it's fallen so far, I still think it's one of those low tier steals that like is still pretty viable. I'm surprised people aren't using it as much as they are. I guess there's just better steel types out there, but I think if you want a fun mon to use, I think Kaparaja is a very good mon if you want like a secondary steel, a fun mon to use, a mon that you can rely on to be very bulky. Its coverage is fucking insane. It also has Sheer Force with Iron Head, Play Rough, Rock Slides, and Headbutt, so pretty decent coverage. But I have done the calcs, and I think Heavy Metal, Heavy Slam, and like the problem with Sheer Force is you typically don't want to run like those moves all in order. And then if you're running like Earthquake, you're not getting anything out of Sheer Force, and you're just taking Life Orb recoil. So at sometimes like it's just better to run Heavy Metal, or if you are running Sheer Force, like you might not need Life Orb, but in that case, like in most instances, like Heavy Slam was the better click with Heavy Metal. Gen 9 gave it knockoff, and that Dex allowed it to keep Power Whip, which is very good to beat bulky waters. Speaking of Alomomola, like I have beat Aloe 1v1 with Kaparaja. It's beaten like Seismitoad, Gastrodon, Quagsire. Like it can beat a lot of shit. And its speed tier is low, but you could pretty easily invest in speed to outspeed like base 40s that would be threatening to you otherwise. So you can do a lot with Kaparaja. It's very moldable. You can even use it like on the special side. Like it has a decent special attack stat, but I am struggling to think of what moves it gets on the special side. Like it might just be like Flash Cannon. It might get Thunderbolt, but I could also be thinking of Melmetal, because Melmetal is pretty similar with having a high special attack stat. So don't take into account any of that special stuff. If you want to use special Kaparaja, send me a replay of it doing something. But for the most part, it's a good physical attacker. The last mon I want to talk about is Inteleon. Now, Inteleon's one of those mons where it is kind of hard to slot on your team because it's very frail. 120 speed is fast, but sometimes it's not really fast enough. But if you compare it to something like Gren, and if the only thing you're doing on Gren is using choice specs, Inteleon is just kind of better because Inteleon has a lot higher special attack. It has basically the same coverage with the Dark Pulse, Ice Beam. Yeah, sure, Dark Pulse isn't stab, but you have stronger Ice Beams unless you're like Protein Gren. But yeah, you also have Flip Turn, U-Turn, which Gren didn't have both of those until ZA, so Inteleon was ahead of the game. Inteleon also has like Vacuum Wave, and it has Sucker Punch I believe it also gets Aqua Jet and Ice Shard, so it has a lot of priority. I've used Vacuum Wave to beat stuff like um, Cloyster before. Um, Not that Cloyster is like a super common mon, but you can kind of see like applications for it. Like if you think you're about to lose like a Choice Band Weavile and like Scarf Inteleon doesn't kill Weavile, like you can just kind of click Vacuum Wave and then bye bye Weavile. Specs is pretty easy to run on this thing. Um, you kind of don't have to think about its moves that often because, as I said on like some of the other water types on this list, like water is just a very good. Sorry, it's I had a burp. Water is just a very good type to run offensively. So there you have it. Um, Last thing I had to say about Inteleon is Focus Energy is absolutely broken if your opponent has a slow team and doesn't have good Scarfers to revenge kill Inteleon. And I've seen it a lot more often than you'd think because some people are not good at drafting or like kind of meme their drafts. If you're as this video is kind of meant for like newer players as well, I'm sure you could, as an experienced player, like you could listen to like some of these ideas, but if you're a new player especially and you notice like people are drafting like really like fat teams, maybe not even fat teams, but like just slow teams without good Scarfers, Inteleon is going to be really good in those matchups. um, Basically Sniper is guaranteed if you're running a scope lens plus focus energy. um, and I don't even think you have to run Snipe Shot, but sometimes I run Snipe Shot just in case I can't get off all of my setup, or if I get knocked off, then at least like Snipe Shot plus Focus Energy is still a guaranteed crit, because you need +3 in your critical hit ratio, which I believe Focus Energy gives you +2. Snipe Shot is a +1, and Scope Lens is a +1, so you're completely fine on Snipe Shot. So if you want to just run like Focus Energy plus like Mystic Water, then Snipe Shot is still guaranteed crit, and you're getting extra damage off of it with like Mystic Water, which is very cool. So yeah, that is my list. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment if you want like a part 2. There's definitely some more Pokemon I could think of putting on this list, but part of my inspiration for making this video is Mr. Corrupted. I'm sorry, what the fuck is his full YouTube name? I have to look. Oh yeah, California Corrupted. California with a K, and then it's like Kuru PTED. He's been like my best friend recently, and he and I have been talking a lot about like, oh, what mons do you think have fallen off? What mons do you think are underrated? Recently, I had a game, or I had like a mock battle against him where I used Mr. Pheasantipity, and it just kind of inspired me to like make this video because like some people really don't know like what these mons do, and I think it could be very helpful to see like, oh, these mons are pretty good in Gen 9, or like pretty solid low tiers, good budget picks, fun mons. If maybe I want to use Rain, like maybe I'll use Basket Legion Overquill. I think they're very cool together because they're both from Legends Arceus. A low tier Electric, which a lot of people are shitting on Electric types, but I think Bellybolt is just very solid. I've seen especially defensive Bellybolt wall out a lot of things. Glade has been very good for me. Dogi Fez are very good. Azu's just very reliable. So I'm hoping these mons can get picked up a little bit in usage, and if I can think of like another like 10 mons to add to this list, like I might add it. I might even add it to this doc just to like, maybe I'll release this doc, and then like if people want to like look at everything all at once, like go ahead and look at it. And yeah, thanks for watching.